So last night I was on a phone call with the regional coordinators and talking about what it is that we want to have more of in these monthly videos. And two things seemed to be predominant. One was that we find some other faces and other activities to be part of this, aside from this one, which I don't see anything wrong with, but evidently there's not a huge raving scream for more of me. But there is a real call to find out what's going on a more region by region basis. So there's an invitation that reaches out to every man and every part of MDI, whether it's a division, a region, or even a team. That if you want some input into this monthly video and you want the rest of MDI to know what's going on at your hometown and in your home team, then send a video clip with the audio file with it to Greg Tennant,
MDI Originals at AOL.com.
There's going to be time this month to have a lot of input from other parts of MDI, which is fine because the main focus I want to have for this particular month is the real solid launch of our End Abuse project. Anyone interested and wanting to be a part of what we're doing around end abuse should call on March 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 218-936-4141, code 22873 #. That's cause. There's a couple of things around the cause and how we are as an organization, a relationship-based organization, and how we are around being in action that I want to talk about and hopefully be able to summarize that in some concise ways. When the cause seemed to surface, this end abuse cause seemed to surface as something that MDI could take on, it was pretty much in response to looking for something. It didn't have to be end abuse or anything else, something that would bring MDI together as an international organization that we would all work on. The cause seemed to meet most of the criteria that was going to satisfy that need. And then, as I mentioned in an earlier video, I was at a meeting up in Oakland looking over the San Francisco skyline, and it occurred to me that in those homes across there, a lot of wrong stuff was happening. And from that started to germinate this cause. And as I worked more and more with it, it became more and more personal to me. In addition to that, this being an action really started to solidify how important the work is. The more I was in action, the more I was embraced in the purpose of why we're doing this. There's more here than simply statistics, but the statistics are important. The skyline that I was looking at, whether it's San Francisco or Silicon Valley, the reality is that in my geographical area of the San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, there's 6.2 million people. That's roughly 2% of the American population. And in that community, on average, based on statistics, every 6 minutes, there's a call, someone being abused. Every 6.5 minutes, there's a report of child abuse. Those are staggering numbers. And they start getting more and more personal as I drill down as to how they affect me and my community. When I start looking at it in a more personal nature, then I realized that for 1 out of 4 women, that sometime in their life they're going to be beaten, hit in some way, physically abused by their husband, their live-in lover, one of their husbands. Seems like it's almost impossible. 1 out of 4 women. It means when I'm on my street and I go by 4 houses, one of those is going to have that kind of tragedy happening inside of it. 84% of our prison population was abused as children. If we could do something about that issue, how would it impact that statistic in our world? How would it reduce crime? How would it reduce the perpetrators that were once victims themselves? And even getting closer and closer to home, I started asking the question, well, how many of our men have children? And I recently spoke at a Western Men's Conference and asked the same question. I asked how many men had sons and how many had daughters. They all raised their hands, and then I gave out the statistic and moved on. I wish I would have stopped. I wish I would have just said, here's the statistic. For every 4 daughters that men in MDI have, one of them will be abused before they're 17. for every 6 sons of the men in MDI, one of them will be abused before they're 17 years old. It means if you go to your MDI team meeting and you're sitting in a circle with other fathers, and collectively between all of those fathers, there's 10 kids. Let's just say 4 girls and 6 boys. 2 of those are likely to be abused. During the next minute or so, why don't you allow yourself to realize that if you're a father, that some of these children belong to you, and you're not immune to these statistics. The reality is that if you have a couple of daughters, there's a 50% chance that one of them will be abused in some way before she's 17. It's easy to say, gee, that's not going to happen in my community. It's not going to happen in my home. That's something that happens up in some urban area, not where I live. Well, you're wrong. It happens all over. Abuse doesn't care what your race is, what your religion is, what your demographics are. It exists, and it's a problem for all of our society, including the one that you live in. Let that be part of who you are for a minute. I have 5 children. They're all grown, 2 sons and 3 daughters. I want to tell you, my family has personally been touched by abuse in a way that I don't want to talk about what's happened to my children, because that's their business. They're adults now, and they reveal things as they need to. But my family's been touched by abuse. I have been touched by abuse. And the sad thing about it is that abuse and the victims of abuse suddenly want to hide that crime. We're ashamed of it. Something happened to me when I was 12 years old. Still a little bit hard to talk about. And I'm not going to talk about the details of it, because I think your imagination can probably grasp anything you want. The details don't really matter. But something happened to me from a man that was older that shouldn't have happened. And I wouldn't tell anybody, no matter what. No matter what. I knew it had happened, and I carried it with me for years and years and years. It isn't that I forgot about it. I just refused to let it come to the surface. How much that impacted me, I'll have no way of knowing. But I know that it inhibited my relationships with other men for many, many, many years. I was unable to trust men. Finally, 20 years ago, I did a men's weekend, and I've been on a men's team ever since. And slowly but surely, the truth of all of my life has been revealed to men that I trust, including that. One of the things that I know is that my life was seriously held back because I wasn't able to trust. I wasn't able to be that. I wasn't really aware of any of this stuff when we started this project of End Abuse. It's kind of crept into my life, the vivid reality of what's happened to me personally. It wasn't even present when we selected this as our project. But the more I'm working on it, and the more serious it becomes, the more energy I put into it, the more vivid the purpose and the importance and significance of what we're doing becomes to me personally. What I'm doing today is doing the best job I can of having a great relationship with my adult children. I'm the godfather of a girl that is just something I'm so much in love with, and hoping that in her life, the example that my wife and I will make of being solid in a home and in a relationship will be a role model that she'll look at and want to have as part of what her life is when she grows up. If any of this touches you, there's a couple things you can do. One is that you've got children, take care of them in a way that protects them on a personal home front matter. Take care of your children's children by making a difference in the society they live in. And take care of your great-great-great-grandchildren by giving them a better world to live in. All of these things are a responsibility. We don't get to just say, this is our home, I'm going to be sure my kids are okay, and the hell with everybody else. We don't get to say, this is my metropolitan area, and the hell with everything else. Or this is my country, the hell with the rest of the world. Our job Our huge, huge job is to end abuse on the planet Earth. So the work that's in front of us isn't just for MDI. The work that's in front of us is finding a way to prepare the world for the message that abuse will not be tolerated on this planet. That means awareness of public media. It means millions and billions of dollars devoted to that cause. It means alliances with other organizations. It means our organization does everything possible to stomp out abuse in our organization as a first place it is, take care of the victims of it, and then move on to our neighbors and communities. This call that we're going to have on March 3rd will be about what men have done to this point. It should give everybody an idea of what's possible, what different men's teams and men's divisions have done. It'll be a brainstorming in a lot of ways, but it's also a call to action. It answers the question of what you can do. And I don't know what those answers are. I do know that every region has the opportunity to form some kind of an organizational team devoted to this. And in those teams can exist an outreach program, which we have internationally with Jim Ellis, reaching out to other organizations and touching them, partnering with them, and forming alliances. Because alone, we're not going to be able to do this. It's going to take help of everybody in our community. There's going to be fundraising. There needs to be grant writing. There needs to be this huge media release that changes public awareness. Probably more than anything, the real victory here is when our public, through public awareness, starts to realize that abuse won't be tolerated on this planet any more than other social problems of slavery and drunk driving and, in some ways, smoking and other abuses are starting to diminish. And I'm not taking a stand for being a non-smoker or non-drinker or any of that. That's not exactly what it's not what I'm saying at all. Our issue is abuse. It's what we're taking on. But the tools that those other efforts and causes have used have been effective, and they will be ours as well. Once again, the phone number to call on March 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern is 218-936-4141, code 22873 #, which is cause. Thank you, gentlemen. Next month, we're going to have more faces than mine, but I thought it was important for us to get ready for this call because it's going to significantly change who and what we are. Next month, we'll be talking more about the convention. Thank you.